Hello and welcome to Taste Porto Bites and Insights podcast. My name is Ricardo, and today we have a very special guest, um, Brian. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great.
Yeah,
How are you?
I'm good. It's a sunny day in Porto, a city that shouldn't be as sunny as it has been.
Yeah,
But it's summer, so it's
I'll welcome it though. I'll
yeah.
welcome it. Yeah.
Yeah. For how long have you been in Porto?
So I would say that's the beginning of 2019. So that'll be like about 5.5 years now. So
Okay, so
yeah,
it's a while.
yeah,
You're acclimated, you would say,
more or less, I
more or
would
less.
say. Yeah. No, definitely acclimated. Definitely.
And where are you originally from?
So I grew up in Los Angeles, California. Grew up there, and then I moved to the East Coast of Philadelphia when I was 18 to study. And was there for quite a long time, like 10, 11 years. And then I moved here.
Hmm. So, originally to Porto? No, I believe you went first.
Yeah, we were saying originally to Braga because the reason I moved was because my girlfriend's Portuguese. She was
Ah,
yep, they always get you.
love,
That
yes.
love, the perfect reason for it to move. But she was part of an MD PhD program at UMinho,
Hmm.
and so she was working on her PhD in Philadelphia, and I was the barista down the street from her lab, and so we got to know each other, and yeah, that was it.
And how did jazz in Porto actually help making a decision to move over to Portugal?
I didn't do much research as far as that went. So I think even still to this day, I'm still kind of navigating how the music scene works because obviously, especially with dealing with jazz, in Philadelphia, the East Coast, the U.S., like the market and the scene is much bigger. It's different. But I've been super lucky and fortunate to have met a couple people when I came down to Porto when I was living in Braga. Some sessions that were very, very welcoming, and so that they kind of created a nice foundation for me when I moved here
To Porto.
to Porto. Yeah, to kind of start to get get
Into it.
get into it. Yeah.
Very well. And you explored other parts of Portugal before coming up to the north?
You know, so I hadn't really been to Portugal at all prior to, well, I did prior to the move, but it kind of happenstance. It was like I took like a 2 week vacation, and that's where I had like my interview for Calma. That's where I kind of got to meet uh, my girlfriend's parents. That's where I got to meet Portugal for the first time.
Hmm.
And so part of it was in Porto. The rest of it was in Lisbon and Madeira.
Oh,
So
Madeira.
because she's Madeirense, so
Okay, so you have a little bit of
I've
everywhere of
I've kind of
Portugal.
been all over the
Uh,
country except for the Azores
these
at this
yours,
point. Yeah,
beautiful place.
yeah.
But it's curious because you're a jazz musician, you're a barista, and you're kind of improvising your way into Portugal. How's it been so far?
It's been pretty great. It comes with difficulties for sure because you have to learn things. I'm like we were talking about. I'm still grappling with the language. Not a tough part. I feel like I'm comfortable, but there are certain heavier, detailed conversations that are a little more difficult to
And
manage.
especially because you're dating a Madeirense
Yeah.
who has a particular
Yes,
accent.
and for her also, she has a particular accent for Netherlands,
Okay,
so it's
that's
it's
that.
pretty funny. But
Is there any particular cultural shock that you had coming over?
for me, I guess growing up and having moved from one coast to the other coast, that's a vastly different thing in the United States. I'm kind of used to having to adapt as it is. So it didn't shock me so much. Obviously, like the size of everything and the accessibility was a shock, but they were huge pluses. So
Was there anything like, oh, this is weird. Like the first time you went to a bar in Madeira for the poncha, everybody laughing around the fact that the lady was going like this. Oh, this.
I mean, it's I guess it's I would say I don't know if shocking would be kind of the way it was. I just found it fascinating, like that, like the people on the island, and even here in Porto, like everybody is super welcoming, and the way they kind of go about it with a kind of a warm familiarity
Hmm.
with you, even if you're an acquaintance or maybe they just met you. So that was shocking. Not to say that people in the U.S. are cold or mean. I think they have their own warmth as well,
Also,
but
the U.S. is huge, so
it's huge. It's a big place.
if in such a small country like Portugal, even with its two archipelagos nowadays, you have such a huge multitude of people, experiences, ways of going at things.
Yeah,
I'd
but I,
imagine.
I feel like a connecting thread though that there's a certain kind of warmth and like humbleness to Portuguese culture of that allowed me to adapt fairly well.
And
Um,
when would you say that you felt acclimated to Porto?
Um, I think probably when I came back after the quarantines. So I didn't go back to the US during that. I actually spent that in Alentejo because my girlfriend's resident hospital is in Alentejo, and I took probably the last train that was running before they shut everything down all the way down there, and stayed with her in Alentejo for the 3 months or something like that it
The
was.
first lockdown?
Yeah, first lockdown, yeah. And probably shortly after that, when things started opening back up, I kind of was able to navigate and feel a lot more comfortable how it was because I think it slowed a lot of the growth that we saw leading up to the pandemic.
Hmm.
That kind of helped me focus on integrating myself more into the local scene and the residents and stuff
When
like
you
that.
talk about that growth, you're talking about any growth in specific, like the growth of tourism, or you're talking more of a personal
Mostly
growth
in
moving
the growth in tourism, I think. I think just um that the really rapid upward trend we started to see before the pandemic
pandemic?
happened was incredible. But it kind of put me in a situation where as I'm transitioning and trying to adapt to being here, I'm also very busy with like the work and things like that. So when things I was kind of forced to slow down a little bit and spend more time with the people who are here. That's kind of where I really felt like I
Oh, I'm here.
started. This is home. So
But you've arrived, you said in 2019,
to Porto proper, yeah,
but
2019, yeah.
to Portugal.
Portugal 2018.
But you saw the
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean if we just talk about like coffee shops for instance, like Calma didn't exist, and you had maybe one or two places that were like the specialty, hip kind of
yeah, this
things,
because, and
right?
to put things into context, you're a award-winning barista, right?
Almost award winning. Almost.
You won
I
third.
got third. Yeah, I got third. I guess it's an award.
It is an award. Other
So
than being a jazz musician, you're a award-winning barista, so you're in close contact to two very, I would say, outsider um, inputs to Portuguese society, because jazz is something that comes obviously from North America. The specialty coffee tradition is, it's also something coming largely from that side of the world to us. Do you
a
feel?
little bit, a little bit. I think yes, in a sense, those things are. I wouldn't say they're far away from. Well, they're far away from Portugal, but I mean, if we think, I mean, since I moved here, the appreciation for jazz in Portugal is quite surprising. I believe it's a very nice thing to see, and it continues to grow, which is quite impressive. In the U.S., it's kind of all over the place. There's a lot of competition. People feel underappreciated. Here, it kind of gets a more fresh perspective dealing with that art form, or dealing with like working in that art form. And then as far as coffee goes, I mean, it's still coffee, and Portuguese love coffee as it is. So kind that there's a connecting thread that we're working with the same product, but kind of coming at it from a different angle.
Hmm.
And obviously there are things that are kind of like uh abrasive with it, like there's different practices, it's more expensive and things like that. But the reception has been, I think,
Outstanding.
I'm mostly positive from locals as
Hmm.
well.
I
um
I can say myself. I'm a coffee enthusiast. I always felt that coffee should be something you regret having and you're forced to have. So it has to be the most bitter, the most almost like I feel the toasting still in my
mhm.
mouth. And all of a sudden there's this new layering on what you can get from a coffee experience. And that is interesting. But I have to ask you, musician, coffee aficionado, and obviously a traveler as well. Which is your main love? Or
I think I identify myself mostly as a musician.
mhm,
um but I think uh just kind of the conceptual approach to approaching my life with some amount of improvisation, if you will, that has kind of led me to find interesting things and put myself into interesting situations where I get to continue to learn and experience
mhm.
amazing things.
Because one of the things that is like the common ground between the main activities that you practice, I believe, is interaction and adapting and resolving issues. So, do you feel that this coming to Portugal, a place that's worldwide famous for the art of improvising, because that's we even have a word for that. It's called desenrascar.
That's I'm learning that for the first time
Yeah.
today.
Desenrascar is a thing that Portuguese do that make us all feel an immense appreciation and love for MacGyver.
Okay.
Yeah. This idea that with a toothpick and a bubble gum you can build a house. It's kind of what the Portuguese feel about themselves.
Okay.
Is it something that you've noticed in the culture here?
Oh, definitely, definitely. People are really just trying to make it happen with what they have. Um, and Yeah, I have a huge admiration for that. And I think that also probably is integral into me being able to do the things I do as well.
The adaptation, the adjusting.
Yeah.
It's curious because a lot of this comes from the allegedly. This is again like most things in Portuguese. It's always allegedly. It's never like, oh yes, it is like this. It's
Hmm.
allegedly.
Hmm.
This art of improvising and like taking things and adapting and adjusting is largely coming from the fact that in the moment Portuguese were sent out in these small shells and off you go. And inside of the boat, there was little that you could do other than improvising with what you had.
Hmm.
This moving to Porto and this basically playing around with people here and staying with them, improvising your existence in the world. Do you think that makes a difference in your perspective of back home?
Um, a little bit, a little bit.
There's
Um,
a lot of differences
I think
between.
there are a lot of differences. It's kind of tricky because I've been so ingrained into like specific kinds of scenes, and I've been very fortunate that like in my upbringing that is kind of like uh my parents' generation were the kind of ones that who were their parents were like, you had I were either immigrants or you came up with nothing, and you just made it work, right? The whole like American dream is like you just work really hard and it pans out, right? My parents still kind of got to see that, and they kind of instilled whether that's still true or not is whatever was another discussion altogether. But they instilled an idea that it's like, hey, you find a dream and we have what we have, make it work. We make it work. And I think that kind of made it super relatable to me moving here.
Mhm.
So
What is the thing you miss the most about the US being here?
Outside of family, um, I mean, I guess um, it's kind of tough to put a good like button on it, but it's when I first moved here, I guess the level of diversity for certain things was a little limited, um, especially in Porto because it wasn't
It
seeing
was
as much.
growing.
It was still growing. It still is. Still is growing significantly. Um, but I mean um, that's really rapidly changing. So that's
But what were your first impressions moving from abroad into Porto? You've been other places in Europe before coming to Portugal
hmm
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Not for like well, yeah. So one place an extended period of time, but mostly traveling.
Hmm.
And I mean, I guess I really enjoyed like the simple like humbleness and like the pace of life was just really nice that it's hey, this is happening, we're here. Being people were a lot more present, I felt, as opposed to kind of always worrying about the next day and the next thing, the next couple years or whatever.
Mm.
You know, and
People are more
so
present. You
people are more
mean like
present
in relations,
in
right?
relationships and what they're doing from the day to day.
Hmm.
So
Porto still has that aura of a place where you feel like you need to have a whole village to raise a child, and here people are still very invitive and accommodating.
hmm
You are learning Portuguese still. It's a work in progress, right?
yes, yeah.
Is there any tip that you would like to share about people trying to move here and get to know Portuguese? Anything that you struggled with in the beginning and now you feel like, okay, I got this one.
That for like the language specifically, I think taking a crash course, like maybe like a lesson, just or two with someone who knows what's going on and how to kind of work with languages with people learning Portuguese as
Hmm.
well, and then really just trying to immerse yourself as best as you can, which is the reason why my Portuguese isn't as good as I would like it now because it's hard for me to immerse as we've kind of grown into a lot more movement with diversity, which is great, which is
Hmm.
a great thing. But has hurt my ability to a little bit to kind of learn Portuguese.
And you feel like people here always try to adapt and speak in English to
Oh
make
yeah, I mean that.
themselves.
Yeah, when even when I first moved here, people were even if they didn't really know English at all, they would go out of their way to try to find a way to communicate to you and help you out. So
It's
so
a very
that was really
Portuguese
nice.
thing as
Yeah.
well. But it's curious because sometimes you're just telling them, please, but speak with me in Portuguese. I need to practice. And they're like, yeah, 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 of course. But
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to go around, you know,
hmm
this extreme I don't know the word in English. Maybe you can teach me to be extremely friendly. It is to be.
I would say normally we just describe it as warm,
Mhm.
friendly, um, and humble.
Did you have to adjust a lot to that in the beginning?
Um, for me personally, no, but I could see how some people from other places might have a harder time with that.
Hmm.
I was raised in a family that a very large family, and everything was taught like to be friendly, to be warm, and things like that. So, but I have good friends that I ended up growing up with and meeting when I went to college and stuff that are a little more, compartmentalized with how they want things and stuff like that. And so there's, you know,
But you've went from California
hmm
to Philadelphia and then over to here.
hmm
Do you feel that there's any similarity with people in the East Coast and the North of Portugal and the West Coast and the South of Portugal, being that you lived for about 3 months in Alentejo?
uh, you know, I would say you have a lot more in common with the West Coast. Um, Kind of culture, things are slower. Um, people tend to be I think, a little nicer. And the East Coast, the Northeast, there people are a little more blunt and can be a little more cold. Which here in Porto, I guess you can be, you know. Portuans are can be quite blunt as well, but in on the on the East Coast, sometimes I can't really tell if that you're being like genuinely nice about
Hmm.
it being blunt or you're just being condescending. I can't really tell. But here more so, it's like I know you're being blunt, but I get that you mean well.
How is your understanding of Portuguese and specifically Porto's way of talking with curse words? How did it affect you moving
Um,
over?
well, since luckily for me, since initial learning of Portuguese was quite limited,
Hmm.
um, it was just kind of normal to me for to hear those kinds of things. And then, you know, because my girlfriend's Medellins and she is all over the place, and so sometimes she's gone for a little while. Right now she lives in Alentejo and I'm up here, so there's a little bit of a long distance thing, but
Hmm.
I'm learning more Portuense inflections of speaking, and so sometimes we talk in Portuguese and she's like, "Don't say that," like like
Because
this.
of the pronunciation from the north.
Pronunciations or the the curse words and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah.
She doesn't curse at all. So
But she comes from a very, I would say, conservative part of the country, the island of Madeira. Here to the north of the country, and especially to Porto, people in Porto, bah, they just have no filter
yeah,
whatsoever.
yeah, they just let
They
it
go
fly.
for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, uh, do you feel that Porto, in a way, and talking specifically about Porto, Porto, in a way, it changed your perspective on how to work and even life perspective?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Um,
Can you put the button on this one?
a little bit. I guess it kind of it came in combination with where I came from, but also here it kind of just made it more apparent and affirming that you know, being a little more blunt and open about it and direct was a way more efficient way to go about your day to day.
Mhm.
Um, uh, you know, um, I think that's the best way to describe it. I mean, growing up or being on the East Coast, everyone always says they don't have enough time. They're always rushing and stuff like that. And like here you're not rushing, but you're being more direct.
Yeah.
So now you're being more direct and efficient with your time and you're chill about it.
People here, they seem to have this way of going with a purpose,
Hmm.
even if they have no purpose.
Yes,
It's
yes, yes.
curious. They're
Yeah, the sense of urgency or and things like that is a little more apparent.
yeah.
So, and it's nice.
But talking about food, how did the food scene here attracted you or not?
Yeah, I love the food scene here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you already have one of those nights with the jazz troops here in Porto where you go for a late breakfast? By that I mean like going on the morning for something heavy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What was the earliest you ever had a francesinha here?
Uh, I would have to say it was probably like 11, 10 or 11, I think. And that wasn't even with the jazz crew. My boss Kanato was I was like waiting for at like for my number to be called at like a CEF appointment, and we had like 2 hours to spare, and we went around like the corner to the cafe, and I ordered like a francesinha or like a mini
Hmm.
francesinha, and the waiter was like, "Does he know what he's ordering?" Like, and I was like, "I know what I'm
What was your
ordering."
impression of a francesinha? The first time you had one was probably right when you came, right? Because everybody tries to push a francesinha into someone that's
Yeah,
coming over.
yeah, yeah.
Do you recall the place you went to for the first?
My very first one was in Braga, was at Taberna Belga.
Okay.
Um, and I thought it was awesome.
But I love that you did this small pause. Like I thought it was awesome
I
because
thought
you
it was
probably
awesome.
share that with people from Porto, and people go like, "Oh, that's not even a francesinha,"
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought it was great. And I still like that Francesinha too. It's a different style.
Hmm.
It's a different style. But I mean, I think yeah, I love Francesinhas. So
but people here are quite biased in talking about these specific things of the city of Porto.
Hmm.
Porto is in a lot of ways still an enclosed space.
Yes, yes.
You notice that
Hmm.
coming in.
Definitely, definitely. And I think maybe just the way that certain transportation is set up. I mean, you still have the obvious geographical barriers of like the river, and then like once you go to like Gondomar, it gets hilly,
Hmm.
and the roads are all kind of all over the place. Um, so it does get a little closed off to itself. So I think that tends to lend itself into that uh,
Closed.
closed big village kind of
Hmm.
vibe.
Yeah, that's a really nice way to describe it because you still feel that city of like inner cities into the city where you have like almost villagers in certain parts that even with your maximum abilities of Portuguese, and I talk about myself because I was born here and I speak Portuguese quite fluently, I think. I understand nothing of what they say. So,
Yeah, I mean there's a time I was very recently actually. I tried to get like a butane gas changed out or refilled, and I went to like the fruteria that I think he has something or something like that, and I tried to ask him like, do you change these or what, how does this work? And like he responded, either he didn't understand what I was saying or I had absolutely no idea what he was saying because I could not decipher like
what
it
was happening
like what
there?
was happening with like his accent was so thick and he spoke a little low and stuff like that. And I was like, I think I understand that maybe this isn't the place that you do this.
Hmm.
That's what I got. But it was all cool. Like he understood, and I still walk by the fruiteria and he's like,
Hello.
I was like, hello. And I
Do
was
you want
like,
to finish that business at the other time?
yeah, I was like, I don't understand.
Going a little bit further back into the conversation and talking about your initial adjustment to the city of Porto, um, how do you feel that tourism growth and the way that the city's dynamic is changing? And it's quite visible that it is changing.
Yeah.
How do you feel that affecting you here, particularly?
Um, you know, from like a personal standpoint, how it affected me, well, uh, I think the plus sides, I mean, it's really nice to see growth. It's really nice to be working more, um, meet new people from all over the place. On the other side, I do have like I do see some more of like my closer Portuguese friends and things like that kind of having to be a little more remote as they kind of move further away to
Hmm.
kind of handle the cost of being in Porto proper.
Hmm.
So those are kind of the things that I noticed the most. Um, Yeah, I guess I would say
That would be
that would be
the
the
point.
yeah the main point is I guess yeah, most of my circle of like the local Portuguese residents are have been here for a while, and they'll probably remain because I think it's still affordable if they've been here for that
Hmm.
long. But some of the younger generation, like the younger jazz generation we're talking about, like those kids they're relatively close to my age as it is too, like they're still kind of uh living
Struggling to come
struggling. I
here.
mean, you're still, you're
It's normal.
it's
Also,
normal.
this growth obviously it brings a lot of positive
Oh yeah,
things
yeah,
also.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Do you feel that a lot of the people just focus themselves onto the negative around these parts? Do you think?
I think maybe it's just maybe like a Porto thing of being optimistically pessimistic, like that, like it's like we'll talk about the things that are going wrong, but there's always like a hope to
Yeah.
like, yeah, we're gonna figure it out, like
But
it's
people
gonna
here
happen.
are always very critical about everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Like the
yeah. And
first
I mean,
answer.
from being very vocal and direct, like they'll, yeah, like one of the easiest things to always, to be vocal and direct about, or the things that you're pessimistic
Yeah.
about, or the
It seems
negatives. But
like if you have an opportunity here, people will always say no as a first answer, right? Can you do this for me? No, but yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it's that
yeah,
type
yeah,
of attitude.
yeah.
You notice that does that go back into you? Do you also see yourself doing some of those things
Yeah,
yourself nowadays?
definitely, definitely, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you're tripeiro already? Do you think?
Close, close, close.
Close?
Yeah, I'd have to we'd have to ask, I think, maybe like plenty of other people if I qualify first. But yeah,
We have to gather
we have to
the
gather.
concilium of people from
Exactly.
Porto to decide about that.
Decide that. No, but I mean, it's yeah, like the growth has been super positive as well. Like you were saying, like you don't want to focus only on the certain the negative things. Um, but it's, you know, a lot of opportunity for Porto to grow and experience new things and find new ways to kind of uh, preserve what makes Porto special, as well as kind of expand upon that.
You keep contact with a lot of your friends in the United States, both on the east and the west coast still?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do
It's
they
not as frequent, but
Mhm.
yeah, we stay in touch.
Do they ask a lot about Portugal? And have you had any one of them visiting because they knew you were here?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
plenty.
yeah, yeah. I've had family. I've had a couple of friends. I have one friend who actually ended up coming out here just to visit, and she ended up staying. So she lives here, um, just lives and works here now.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
Because the same things that we feel like they only affect us here, it's also affecting everyone
yeah, it's
everywhere
affecting
else.
everywhere else. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
generational
Hmm.
in a certain
I think
sense.
so.
But the people that come over, and you have a huge list of contacts, I believe, out of being a barista and receiving a lot of people that are here visiting. Do they share anything about the city of Porto that because you're originally from North America, they feel more comfortable and more at ease to share that you want to share with me or with us?
Things about Porto that they've shared. I mean, I think they really just enjoy a lot of the things we've talked about already.
Hmm.
Like the people seem to be really nice. Um, this kind of like people taking the extra time to kind of communicate with you, if even if you can't. The food being really good.
Hmm.
Those are most of the things that they comment on.
You have any particular restaurant that you have as a go-to location to feel, "Ah, I'm having a authentic Portuguese meal here."
Oof. Um, that's tough.
You can
That's
say
really
more
tough.
than one
That's
if
really
you
tough.
want.
Um, yeah, I mean, if we're going very authentic Portuguese, I think that one of the ones that I frequent the most is probably Espresso.
Hmm.
Um, then I haven't been there in a while, but Saikau used to be one that I used to go to. Are you
Hmm.
familiar? If you're familiar,
I don't think so.
the Saikau is if you go up by what's it, all the way up Sada Bandeira
Uh-huh.
to the end and hang left on the main street.
Hmm.
It's like right over there.
Psycho.
Saikau. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because you said psycho, and I was
Oh,
like,
no, yeah, sorry, sorry.
psycho.
No,
But
Saikau. Yeah.
this is the learning curve,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
The
Saikau.
pronunciation sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes it goes away.
uh,
Yeah. Especially when we've been speaking so much
in
English now,
English.
then it's like, oh wait, I have to
I
be
have to
more.
go back to
I have to
Portuguese,
go
right?
back to that. Yes. Yeah.
In just in a nutshell, we didn't talk a lot about food, but the food here is properly different, right?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
because you have experience with Madeira, that's a different type of gastronomy. You obviously go a lot to Alentejo,
Mm-hmm.
which is a completely different thing. You lived a while in Braga, it's also quite different, and then Porto.
Mm-hmm.
How does such a small country have a huge variation? How does that surprise you or not coming over?
It does surprise me quite a bit. The fact that there's always like a connecting thread that all of these are so different, but they still have some kind of Portuguese touch to them.
Hmm.
And I think it's been an incredible experience to kind of really find out the things that are regional, and seeing that kind of regionality on in such a small country and with such a high level
Hmm.
as well of quality is really nice. You know, so
Brian, it's a very nice conversation that we're having, but we have to close. It's a pity, right?
yeah, a
We
little
could
bit.
talk a little bit longer, but we're missing the coffee as well.
Yeah,
What is the best commentary you had from a Portuguese drinking one of your served coffees?
the best commentary. I mean, I think most of the time it's always the ones that are a little more open to like, you know, because Portuguese really have a very specific way they like to take their coffees. It's normal. Everyone
Hmm.
likes their coffee like the way they do it. It's a ritual. Um, and then you kind of, if they have the patience to kind of like work with you and like learn it, and they'll try it, and they'll like they'll like hate it the whole time, and then all of a sudden they'll be like, you know what, this is actually pretty good. I really like this.
I will repeat.
I will do this again. You know, I think someone just said it's really, they thought it was really nice to just experience a coffee that was different than what they've used to have, and not necessarily different and like it's strange and I won't come back, but they usually describe it in a way that's, it's very aromatic, and it's
I didn't knew coffee could be good. Some people will say that as well,
yeah,
no?
yeah.
Oh, I don't have
And
to put
oh,
sugar.
usually that's the best comment that you get is like, oh, I don't even need sugar for this.
And did you
So,
did you have obviously you had to know a lot about coffee nowadays, but
mhm.
did you manage to go deep into the history of Portuguese trading coffee and their
I didn't get like a too in-depth one. I know vaguely more or less how it worked. Um, and I still have to familiarize myself a little more about it as we go along. But it's a very rich history of things with Portugal as it is. So that's one that was kind of on the side. I preferred, learning more. Not preferred, but I prioritized like the language, how the
uh
history affected the language, and you know, knowing certain things like that. So
Brian, it was definitely a pleasure, and we should have to do this again. We have
sure,
to, honestly.
yeah,
But before you go, I have a small gift. It's more of a memory.
okay.
We're quite symbolic in Portugal. You probably have noticed this already. So what I'm gonna offer you is a swallow. Swallows
Nice.
are a Portuguese symbol. I don't know if just in Portugal, but a little bit all over. They're a symbol of the necessity and importance of going, but coming back. They always come in spring, and it's also what we want with this experience for you to come back whenever you can. And it was a pleasure to have you here.
Likewise.
Uh, See you next time,
Yeah.
and see you in our next episode.